What the hell was this? Full disclaimer, I love wacky books. I put all of my chips on wacky books. I have a book club dedicated to wacky books. This was a little extra, you know? It was going a bit too far, and just when I thought it can't get more strange, it did. How? This was actually my introduction to Mona Awad, so I have to. It begs the question, are her other stories this intense? Because I would be down to read other books by her, but I'm worried that they will all have this level of madness. It was a bit like if Margaret Atwood took hallucinogenics, because their writing style, there was noticeable similarities, but she has no focus. There are so many half-formed ideas in this story, so many like gear switches where it would just change direction and suddenly there'd be all these new characters and storylines. I couldn't keep a track of it. It was befuddling to say the least. I okay. I do know that I don't like this. I don't hate it, and the reason I don't hate it is because it was never boring, which is difficult to do. Usually, there's at least a couple instances in a book where you're like, okay, come on, let's pack it up. Never boring, which kudos. But yeah, I still don't like it. For me, it exists in the exact same pocket as If We Were Villains, where the aesthetic, top notch. Like, this is how you make a book that will do well on social media because it has the pure aesthetic. It's something that you can see on like Pinterest boards and TikTok edits. Like, it feels incredibly arresting in like its visuals. The storytelling, not the case. The storytelling, the character work, left a bit to be desired. But I can still see how some people out there will base their whole personality on a book like this because it does have that addictive, viral sort of quality to it, even if the plot is a bit like. I've seen a lot of people label this as like a dark academia novel, which, sure, it's a campus novel and it is dark. So if we're going strictly off of that criteria, then yes. But for me, there wasn't enough of a take. The social politics were very lacking, and I think it was trying to be a cautionary tale about privilege, but sometimes it trickled down into more of like a glorification of that same privilege. Like, in a lot of ways, this felt like a girl's version of Fight Club. Like, oh, let's completely grandstand this lifestyle and make all of our readers want to be a part of it, only to then like turn around and show you how none of it was real in the first place. Like, the bunnies are basically Brad Pitt in Fight Club. But yes, Bunny, it starts. Our main character, Samantha, she's in like one of her final years at university. She's doing like a creative writing, liberal arts type of thing, but there's only like five other people in her year group, which felt strange. Like, what kind of back swamp, tiny little cupboard of a university are you going to, where in an English type degree, there's only five or six people? Like, I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand America. That felt strange. But as I'm saying, that it was just her and this clique of girls that call themselves the Bunnies, and she wants to assimilate into their group because she feels that she should have friends on her course. She does already have a friendship with Ava, which they hint later on in the story. There's like a mere suggestion of LGBTQA. Like, it becomes vaguely sapphic, but again, there's no real development on that. What are you trying to tell me? I don't know. Samantha gets swept up in the world of the bunnies. They are all taking like a bunny drug that makes them a bit like they all start tripping. This would be a good book to take like some edibles to. You know, like maybe that was Mona Awad's inspiration. Like, is she someone who writes under the influence? I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised. But then what happens next, and I really didn't care for it because I thought this book was going to have much more of an inspired feminist angle about girls working together to uplift one another. Not the case. The third act is dominated by them trying to create like perfect boyfriends. Their methods of doing it is not very clear. It seems to be like they make bunny rabbits explode, and then the blood from that is then used to organically, it's like recycled into a man. I'm telling you, this is wild stuff. Wild. So they're making men, but they can't get it right, particularly the genitals, because they want this man for, you know, good times, and they can't because the bits aren't working. But then Samantha makes like the perfect book boyfriend who starts seeing all of them, and then he turns into a deer at the end and like brutally injures all of the bunnies. I need someone to like vindicate what I'm saying at the moment, because there's a small part of me that's like, did I really read this book? Can someone in the comments just be like, yeah, Alfie, that did happen. That is in fact the story of the book. I just want to co-sign what you're saying so that you don't feel that a part of you has gone away with the fairies or something, since it's so strange. And as I said earlier, what's the take? What are you trying to tell me? Is it just vibes? Is it one of those? Am I supposed to just be taken in by the atmosphere and want to be a part of it? Because I don't. I really thought it was going to take the direction of a cultist horror, but there's never any sense of entrapment. When Samantha is done with the bunnies, that's it. She leaves their group. She doesn't have anything to do with them. And for a large stretch of the book, they're not even present. So it just feels a bit like, well, what's the stakes? What's the threat? Why? There's no tension here. It's just passing through the final years of university. Okay. I mean, at one point, she gets tied up and left in like a cave, and this caretaker finds her in the morning and is like, oh, you kids with your creative art projects. It's like, no, she's just been tied up. Like, do something. But even then, he's like, oh, at some point you're going to have to go back into the real world. And I wish the story had explored that more. Like, if Mona Awad is making a statement about how liberal art students have no appreciation for the real world, explore that further. You know, how do the bunnies' inherited privilege contribute to that? Show me the disparity, like counterbalance it. It never really felt like Samantha's life was that deprived compared to the other girls. Like, sure, she didn't have as much stuff, her house wasn't as big, but she was never like on the bones of her arse, if you know what I mean. Like, she never felt like she was burning low or there was anything that she was really working against. So the whole story is just a bit like, oh, okay, drifting. I think one of the bunnies actually says something at the start of this novel that sums it up perfectly. They're doing a workshop and she's talking about Samantha's latest writing, and she says, it's in love with its own otherness. And I thought, whoa, that's perfect. That's exactly what this is. It's in love with its own otherness. There's an attention-seeking quality to this book. It feels self-effacing, and so you can't take the alternativeness, even though it is a real big swing and it does some wacky stuff, you can't take it seriously because the book is just so self-serving. You know, our main character exists in that like Wednesday Addams, Daria sort of quality where, sure, she's unusual, but it just doesn't have any authenticity to it for me. I gave it 3 stars. I'll probably remember it, but not for the right reasons.